Welcome back to another Star Mini Gaming YouTube video. This is my first ever battle report that I'm trying to do, and so first off I would like to apologize. It will not be amazing. There will be mistakes made. There were mistakes made in terms of taking the photos. I didn't get all the ones I wanted to. I at points forgot to take some of the pictures while I was playing the game. We had a break for lunch, and that's whenever, I missed some. I missed a few just at other points even before that in the game, so please bear with me. I apologize for that, but I wanted to try to do one, and so, as with many things in our first try, we don't do it as well as we'd like, and that's what this is, but I'm going to go ahead and put this out there. Also, there is not as much terrain as I'd like. I had brought some of it home and completely forgotten about it as I was working on painting it, so there should have been quite a bit more of little bits of scattered terrain that wouldn't necessarily break up movement or anything too much, but just add a nice look, add to the look of it. And also the Ophidian archway, I have that at home. I've been working on it as well to bring up there, and please also excuse the fact that this is a flat green mat. It's one of those kind of grass mats that you'll often see in hobby shops designed for like railroad, model railroad displays. Currently that's what I was able to afford to get something to cover an 8x4 table. I would eventually like to invest in a fat mat, but at the moment that just hasn't been an option for myself. But without further ado, this was a battle plan called Home Ground, which is from the Balance of Power book, and it is a battle between Death Forces and Chaos, which is what we had. We did alter the recommended forces from kind of a narrative perspective. In the narrative, it is Neferata and her general, who is riding a zombie dragon, fighting the Slaneshi forces, but my good friend Henry, who was kind enough to appear in the battle report with me, he plays Skaven and Khorne, primarily the Bloodbound, and I particularly like Arcan the Black, and I decided I wanted to bring my female vampiress lord on Zombie Dragon that I've converted. The model is painted up and modeled after my wife, and no, that is not meant to be a negative commentary. I enjoy basing models that are significant within whatever faction I play upon people that I know, kind of using them as inspiration for the piece. And so with her permission, I did so. A lot of the pieces in this battle report also, unfortunately, will be unpainted or halfway painted. That's the nature of both of us being about 3 to 4 months into the game and trying to expand our armies very rapidly. So without further ado, let's get started. So with the special rules of this scenario, we are basically supposed to design a board that could fit kind of the outskirts of a town or a city. And myself playing as the defending faction, I split my force in two based upon the number of units that I bring. And I can deploy up to half of them, including my commander, who was in this, my Vampirist Lord on Zombie Dragon. And I have to move my, well, I don't have to, but it's advantageous of me to move my Vampirist Lord on Zombie Dragon into range of a portal that you'll see in the middle, in the middle of the battlefield in a moment. And after she's done that, in each subsequent hero phase, she can bring on another 1/4 of my army until it's entirely reached the battlefield. So this is what I started with on the table: 10 zombies. A Vampirist Lord on Zombie Dragon with the Blood Chalice, which I've modeled her with. I gave her Neferata's staff, which I'm using as a Death Lance because I thought it looked kind of cool towards that that theme. And she also has the the shield. This there's a Mortis Engine and Arcan the Black, and we are playing this game with 1,500 points in the SDK system per side. And this was what I had off to the side. I have my Necromancer, who is represented by this skeleton right here, which is from Reaper. I had 10 Skeleton Warriors, the old Tomb King style. I have a single Banshee from the Mortis Engine set, and I have Deadpool, who is standing in as my Karen Wraith, because I accidentally forgot it as well. I recently painted it up. I love the model. It's not necessarily super amazing in game, but it's not bad. But I love the look of it. And so I was like, you know what? I've been dying to get my Deadpool model in game. I've played with him in 40K, and I've wanted an excuse to use him in Age of Sigmar. So I was like, you know what? I forgot my Karen Wraith. Deadpool, you are standing in as a Karen Wraith. And so I got to finally fulfill that wish. And here's what I was fighting up against. Over here on the far left, we have a Doom Wheel. We have, I believe it was about 25 Clan Rats. We have a unit of 8 Blood Warriors. We have a unit of 30 Blood Reavers. We have 2 Korgoraths, one that my friend Henry has customized with an extra head from his Carnifex to give it a little bit more character. We have 2 Mighty Lords of Khorne, a Bloodstoker, and a Blood Secretor. And this is the battlefield after deployment. There is, the inn and a little bit of other things behind my forces over there. And the forces of Khorne took turn 1 and moved up, of course, as quickly as they could, because this isn't my opponent's first game against my Death Forces, and he knows, as well as anyone who has played against them, that you need to move up quickly and hit the summoners as quickly as you can, because otherwise they will continue to tie you down with just hordes of zombies and skeletons. I currently have about 50 to 55 skeletons, and all of them are built and painted. And I have 40 zombies built, probably about 15 to 20 of them painted, and another 20 that are still on sprue that need to be assembled very soon. So you'll see the majority of those on the table at some point. So he moved up, of course, and I moved up on my turn. I had summoned with Arcan some of the a small unit of zombies, and on this far left flank over here in front of him, they ended up being summoned, the full 18 inches away from him, which ended up being somewhere around here. And after the Khorne forces had moved up, they were able to successfully roll for their charge, as you see here, and they engaged the Blood Warriors. And, this was a squad of 20 zombies, because, between Arcan's +3 on casting and the +1 additional from the Mortis Engine being right there, it was very, very easy for him to roll. It was necessary to summon the full 20 that you can do if you roll a higher result. They came charging in. This one particular zombie that's painted in here is an old farm lady. That's kind of her backstory. I like to create, kind of backstories for all of them. This is my custom zombie with Noisemaker, which is just a bell that I attached to a chain, and I figured, that seems very appropriate for a zombie. He doesn't even think about the fact that he's holding something, but he's just kind of walking, hearing this noise, and all these other zombies are attracted to the sound of the bell, because the Noisemaker is a useful thing in Age of Sigmar. And so anyways, they went in combat with the Blood Warriors, and this was one of those combats that at first was not really going either way. The zombies did manage to kill one of the Blood Warriors in the initial round, and they took a few casualties themselves, but a couple of them stood back up because of their icon banner. And then on turn 2, I won priority, and Deadpool and his skeletons that he brought with him, the 10 that I had waiting off to the side, came through the realm gate that was acting as our stand-in portal. And in addition, we had that was all actually that had arrived that turn, because it was only half of my reserves that was allowed to come in. And so there we are with that shot of how my forces have moved up. My commander on Zombie Dragon had to be within 3 inches of the portal to allow my reinforcements to come in via the portal, which was a nice mechanic because, honestly, especially with the Death faction, the tendency is to, at least initially, just sit back and just spawn in more units. And if I wanted to gain access to the skeletons as well as the zombies to bring into the battlefield, and really any of the other units that I had, set aside to be part of my force, I had to move up to where it's easier for my opponent to get to me. And I thought that was a good idea in terms of designing from GW's part. So Deadpool, of course, charges immediately on in without waiting for his skeleton warriors, who fortunately also succeeded in their charge. Arcan in the hero phase summoned in these additional 20 skeleton warriors who were here to kind of screen and protect the commander. We had this group of zombies that also was increased in size by some more that our commander had summoned in right here to bolster their numbers to 20. We had the Mortis engine kind of sitting next to it, ready to use both its single time use shockwave and its Banshee scream that it had, in addition to its pretty fair number of attacks to help protect our commander. So I decided, Arcan's not my leader. I've only used him once before. He's obviously a very good spellcaster, but I'm like, his stats are fairly impressive. I'd like to throw him in combat just for the fun of it. I'm like, I'm not worried about playing this game in the most strategic sense of play to win. I was like, I want to have some fun with this. So, clearly it's a better strategy to keep Arcan back because of his magical ability. That's where he's at his best. He's most useful for you. But I was like, you know what, let's just go for it. And so I threw him into combat to support his zombies against the Blood Warriors. And there is Deadpool charging in ahead of all of his skeleton warriors because that's exactly what he would do. So there we have Arcan in combat supporting the zombies that he had previously summoned. And so Arcan did initially pretty well. He killed a couple of the Blood Warriors, and the zombies did their part as well and wounded as well. So the Blood Warriors ended up dropping down to 3 or 4 of them left. Deadpool was mobbed by the massive group of Blood Reavers, and they managed to kill him. Fortunately, as a Karen Wraith, he is resummonable, and we just describe that as it's Deadpool's ridiculous regenerative abilities, but they will take time, of course, to come into play. The unit of 10 skeletons, however, that he brought with him, in many ways were the MVP of the battle because they were immovable. They would lose a couple each turn, and every turn their icon bearer would bring them back. Their icon bearer is the one right up here that has the shield and the fancier head bit and all. You can't really see his icon there. There we go. So as you can see, yes, Arcan and the zombies managed to whittle down the Blood Warriors down to 3. And then, of course, it was Chaos's turn, and they decided that they had had enough. So if you look at this picture here, you can see that there's the Bloodstoker and 2 Mighty Lords of Khorne and some rats over here, as well as the Blood Secretors back here. So in the next turn, the Blood Secretor planted his, next turn for Khorne that is, following up on this, the Blood Secretor planted his staff, so everything got bonus attacks that was within 18 inches. The Doomwheel moved up and shot, completely whiffed on Arcan. Only 1 actually hit and completely failed to wound on the 5 shots that it rolled to generate. The Mighty Lords of Khorne stepped up, did a little bit of damage. The Bloodstoker stepped up, did 1 or 2 wounds. The rats did nothing. The Blood Warriors basically did nothing. Arcan was looking still pretty good at 9 wounds, and then, of course, he died to the one of the 2 Mighty Lords of Khorne's rolling a, actually they both rolled greater than a 5 or 6 and banished him to Chaos, so he died instantly. A few more Skelebums over here died, a few more zombies died, and in each of those cases, a few of them stood back up to prolong their tar pitting. As well, you can see the Korgoraths ran on over here on this big group of zombies. I summoned an additional Banshee here, and we had the other one finally come through the portal on my next hero phase, and which was immediately following. And these 2 Banshees proceeded to do nothing for the next couple of turns. The zombies were kind of just locked in combat with these Korgoraths. Every turn the zombies would inflict a couple wounds, the Korgoraths would kill a couple zombies, the icon bearer for the zombies would roll for his ability, a couple zombies would stand back up. So this was basically just an absolute deadlock. The Korgoraths weren't going to be killed, but they weren't going to be able to kill all the zombies, so they were just stuck. Over here we had a slow progression of this group of 10 zombies that Deadpool had brought in, just kind of trading back and forth slowly, both sides getting whittled down against the Blood Reavers. I don't know why I keep forgetting their names. And this flank was what worried me. I had lost Arcan. We had this group of zombies that were, you know, being whittled down, and if really my opponent had decided to, he could have thrown everything at them and crushed them entirely in one turn. Eventually they all did die, but he didn't throw everything at them. And here's another picture of that kind of, you know, tar pit that was completely unmoving, neither side winning. And I had moved my Mortis engine up and intentionally positioned it to where if you looked at it from the front, it's kind of neat because it looked like the, you know, the kind of ghostly riders at the front were trying to come through the portal. And there is, you know, a bit of a zoom in. This die over here on the Zombie Lordess's base is just to show that she had a Mystic Shield up for the turn. There, again, is my Necromancer, ready to support if need be. So this is unfortunately where I missed a couple of turns in terms of taking photographs. Here is my opponent's dead pile. So basically what happened is my Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon was still back over there in the same spot. And my opponent moved up everything. He moved up his Bloodstoker, as you can see right here. He moved up his Rats. He moved up the remaining Blood Warriors, which there were still 3 of them left. He moved up both Mighty Lords of Khorne, and they were utterly annihilated. This group of 20 skeletons that were over here single-handedly killed both Mighty Lords of Khorne and all of the Blood Warriors in a single turn. And then the Bloodstoker ran in and killed one of the 2 Mighty Lords of Khorne, not both. And the Bloodstoker and the other Mighty Lord of Khorne ran in and got into base contact with the Mortis engine because they knew about, number one, its shrieking abilities, which had failed every round thus far in the game, and its single time kind of shockwave of death magic that it could send out to heal all of my allied units and damage all my enemies. And they did a number on it. They brought it down to 4 wounds left. And on the die roll from the remaining Mighty Lord of Khorne, my opponent rolled a 4 when needing a 5 or 6 to banish it to chaos. And so on my following turn, which is the turn that you see kind of the end of here, he had his forces decimated. The remaining Rats were hit twice because the shockwave hit them. Shockwave hit everything other than his Blood Secretor that you can see over here at the back, and did significant damage. You know, I think only in one instance did it inflict 1 wound. I think that was on the Skaven. And then, of course, immediately afterwards, we had the Banshee Shriek come away from it, and that inflicted wounds on everything except for the Korgoraths. One of the 2 Banshees finally succeeded in her scream at the 2 Korgoraths and inflicted a few more mortal wounds there. And then finally, my Vampire Lord, I decided, you know what, let's get her stuck in. We are on turn 4. And in this particular scenario, there was a 6-round game that if he did not kill my commander by the end of round 6, then it was a victory for me. And, you know, because the assumption is that reinforcements arrive. So I flew my Vampire Lord over here, attacked his Doom Wheel, killed it in a single turn quite easily because she had the Death Lance, which does 3 damage on the charge, and the Zombie Dragon is just an absolute terror in close combat with the amount of rend and damage to and everything that it has. It just ripped that thing to pieces. And after having, you know, Deadpool resummoned over here in that same hero phase, my opponent immediately conceded. He said, the only thing that I have left on the battlefield that could even potentially kill that, you know, full health Vampire Lordess on Zombie Dragon is these 2 Korgoraths who are tied up in a never-ending battle. And if he chose to disconnect in this next turn from this combat, and I chose to allow him to run all the way over here to fight my Vampire Lordess, it wouldn't be until turn 6. And they physically could not kill her in a single turn between her Vampire Chalice that would restore a d6 wounds, and then as well the scenario-specific ability that she could inflict any number of mortal wounds onto a friendly squad and heal herself of those many wounds. So at the end of turn 4, we called it there. We didn't even bother to fight out the rest of the combats because ultimately these poor Skaven were about to be killed by this amazing shock troop force of skeleton warriors that were the bloodiest killers in this entire battle, killing a mighty Lord of Khorne, the remainder of a squad of Blood Warriors, killing quite a few Skaven, and holding that flank against the majority of my opponent's army. And then this never-ending conflict over here, and then the 10 skeletons the Deadpool had brought in finally dying over here to these Blood Reavers, but by that point it was far too little too late, and really this turn I could have summoned even more skeletons and more zombies, but I chose not to, because by this point it was already apparent that the battle was over and that Death faction had won. So this was a major victory for Death faction. We are going to continue in this campaign. This was, for us, we were kind of choosing to jump into what is, from a narrative perspective in the Balance of Power book, kind of in the middle of a war. We decided to use this as more of a probing attack by Chaos, and so we will bring back a lot of these same forces. We'll keep our commanders in it. Arcan will probably be gone for good. We're not quite sure how we're going to treat that. All of his commanders were unnamed, so he is more than welcome to bring other Mighty Lords of Khorne. I will come up with a name for my Vampiress Lord, and hopefully next time you will see, number 1, less gray plastic on the table. Number 2, a continuation of the story. Number 3, a bit more terrain on the board. And number 4, an overall better quality battle report next time. But this was my first one. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to play, especially once we got into those later turns, whenever everything was kind of balancing on that razor's edge and it could go either way. And really, my Tomb King skeletons saved the day. But until next time, this is James, and happy gaming.